Let's talk about love. I wish I could sing. I would sing one of those love songs or the intro, but anyway. Whispers of the Soul, talking about love. I was sitting there the other day, okay, what should our topic be this week? And I just had this feeling about how love changes. How that has been my experience anyway. And how is it literally a different color? Every vibrations have colors. So yeah, I guess it would be. And for the purposes of this talk, any time I say it says color, that's just my perception. Doesn't mean that scientifically it would line up that way. I don't know. Doesn't matter. The important thing is we got love, all varieties of love. First of all, we're created from love. We are love. The essence of our very being, our physical being, our spiritual being, everything is love. And love is a way that we interact with others. It's sometimes to a very small degree, where it feels like the opposite of. But if you think about it, even hate, like we might say we hate something or someone. It's a twisted love, because love is the basis of everything. It could be coming from the fear basket, then, but even that is like part of love, because love is essence, right? My first child is not my favorite child. I don't think I have a favorite. I love them both, all of them very differently. But my first child, I am eternally grateful to, because before him, I really had no idea of what love was. Now, love wasn't a word that was tossed around in my house at all. Nobody ever said it. So it wasn't like on my radar. It wasn't something I talked about with my friends. That it wasn't so common then, like it is now. Like now, everybody's like, "Oh, I love you, I love you, I love you." People didn't do that when I was younger. But when I found out that I was pregnant, I had this feeling come over me of such love. And I was really overwhelmed, surprised, glad, unsure, like what is this? I mean, it was such a deep feeling. And then at friends over the period of my pregnancy, different friends would be like, "Oh, just wait till he's born. You're gonna love him, so much more." And I was like, "Yeah, whatever. I already am feeling this. What could possibly be more than that?" And then he was born, and oh my gosh, was I wrong? Because there's just nothing. I had never felt anything like that before. And so I, for eternity, feel like, not that I owe him, but I am grateful to him for giving me that experience of making me have an understanding of what love was. And should feel like, should isn't the right word, can feel like. I'm one of those people brought up in the household that I was. Honesty is like, because my mom was very clear that by not being honest, even if she doesn't know, God knows. So it was very clear to us that the honesty was really important. And when my friends, people that I knew started being like, "I love you," like they just kind of like toss it out there, like, when we're partying or whatever, "Oh, I love you." And I'd be like, "What? I don't even know you. Like, we just met, or I hardly know you," or whatever. it for me was so difficult to accept, because a part of me was screaming, they can't possibly. And to be fair, some people toss that word around, like it's McDonald's. It's on every corner. Yeah, I love you. For me, when I say I love you, I want to mean it in a way that I feel it. And so I can't just be casual about it. But yet I know that there are people that I just see walking down the street, and I feel love for them. There's something about them that just hits you, right? There's that wave, there's that connection. You may not even have spoken a word, but there's just something, some energy that you know. And because the basis of everything is love, you feel it sometimes more profoundly than you have with somebody that you know very well. Love can get infiltrated, affected by things around us. And what I'm trying to get at is, for example, I was in a long conversation today talking about homeschool. So homeschooling is a good example here. When I first started homeschooling, it was still not very popular. It had been around a while, but still wasn't very popular, wasn't very well known. And I caught some grief for it. And today it's still not, it's not the norm. So let's just say that's an example. And you decide that you want to homeschool, that you're going to go up against anybody that says anything against you or that doesn't agree with you or thinks you're wacko or whatever. But then there are parents, and again, I'm using homeschooling as an example, but then you can be a parent and recognize that there's something going on with your child and that maybe homeschooling would be the good answer, and you love your child, but what you love more is being accepted. And so you can taint the love of your child by the love of being accepted, of being the norm. And again, homeschooling is just an example. What I'm trying to get at is this love, we kind of play with it. We kind of call things love sometimes that in some form are love at a basic level, but when it's overwhelmed and outweighed by a fear, it's a different color, isn't it? There's the love you have for your puppy. There's the love you have for your husband. There's the love that you have for the flowers that you grow in your front yard, and they're so beautiful. There's the love that you have for the flowers that you see walking down the street that are just naturally there. We can feel love in so many ways, but we can feel love in joy. We can feel love in sadness. We can feel love in excitement. We can feel love in dull moments. And how we express that love can be in also many ways also. I know that I have more to say. It's just not sitting right here right now. So I'm going to ask for any questions so it'll come, so it can show up.
I was going to make a comment back there that I read something somewhere, because even though in my house coming up, love was expressed, maybe not like it is today, but there was definitely I love yous going around. But still, when people started saying I love you all the time, it took me a minute. And then one day I read something and it said, if people can hate for no reason, I can love for no reason. And that really struck me right here. And I was like, oh God, that is so true, you know? And you know, and as time has progressed, you know, I've gotten a little bit, it comes with a little bit more ease, you know, where I can, you know, love people that have hurt me deeply, or people that, you know, cut me off on when I'm driving along or something like that. There's a little less, oh, I'm gonna get you, and a lot more like, you must need to be somewhere a lot more important than where I'm going, you know, that kind of thing. Anyway, so one of the questions that I came up with for tonight was, does love really have colors? And does every color feel different? I mean, I know that not everybody's going to see the colors. Obviously, I don't see them, or I wouldn't be asking this question. But do they feel different?
Yes, love has colors. Everything has colors because vibration has colors. Everything has colors, whether we see them or not. That's why when I started off and I said, you know, if I assign a color to it, I'm not saying that scientifically that's the right color that the vibration is aligned with, because I don't know. I don't study that. But you know, again, with nothing being a coincidence, I earlier today was feeling like a misty gray, very pretty gray love. And then when I got dressed, I pulled out this gray undershirt, and I'm like, how interesting is that?
Ooh,
That I, huh?
and look what I picked out.
Oh, yeah. See,
Anyway, go ahead.
that is pretty cool. And you have is that white you have underneath there?
It's kind of white, bluish gray.
See, I got gray and white. It's cool. We're like the back reverse of each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there are times when I feel like my love is yellow, like, and sometimes it's pink, and sometimes, let me see if I can narrow that down. Pink is like an excited love, and it's a love. With my granddaughter, I feel a pink love. Her favorite color happens to be pink, but I don't think that it's because so much that it's her favorite color. I think that her favorite color is pink because the love, that kind of love, is pink. That kind of excited, happy-go-lucky kind of love. When you're feeling that. You could say it's like on a spectrum, and we kind of, in our eternal life, our goal is, right, that we're on a spectrum and ever growing and ever growing. If we're talking about this love spectrum, it's kind of a little different because we can kind of like bounce back and forth on it, right? Kind of like playing the piano. You're on different keys at different times, and sometimes you're over, and sometimes you're light, and you know, and sometimes you're feeling much some at the same time. And they're saying it's like if love was a crystal, that it's multifaceted. And so at any time, like maybe this facet is the one that's showing, that's dominant, that's reflecting the light, whatever, that you're feeling more. And sometimes it's another one, sometimes it's all of them. But you have all of them because you have that crystal. You have that crystal of love, that multifaceted crystal that's part of you, that is you, that you carry, however you want to envision it. And then depending on you, depending on how the light hits, right? If you have a crystal, you know, the sun, you know, the sun catchers, you know, depending on how the light hits it, what time of day it is, it's different colors, but it's still that same crystal. And sometimes even it's black. Sometimes you can be in love and walking in love and feeling heavy and hanging in there. Trudging along, trekking along. And we want that to always be our baseline, right? Even when we're in fear, even when we're scurrying to get the kids to school or to make it to work on time or to get that cake baked before the guests arrive, all those, even when we're frazzled, even you want it to always be like the note that you're carrying and acknowledging that it shifts and it can be different. And even if you think about like your spouse or your child or your neighbor or whatever, whoever you are aware that you love, somebody like the example that I gave of having love for that person walking down the street. I'm not going to see them again, so I don't know it's hard to like give this example for them, but somebody like that you live with, that you love, and you know that sometimes you love them, but it on different days and sometimes over the same course of the same day, your feelings of love for them change. Like how you engage with that love is different. You feel it different. It looks different. It comes out different. And we're striving for that pure, clear love. So again, if we're using the crystal example, we want a nice, clear crystal. I'm full one out, but it takes some time. Okay. That as we mature physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, that our love gets more on an even keel and becomes clear like water.
There.
See how clear it is? It's like glass. That's what they call it, by the way. If you're with crystal people, quartz people, if you're digging in, somebody's like, I found glass. And they didn't find glass like a window. They found a clear piece of quartz. And they're very excited because it's way cool to have clear.
Yeah. Before we get too far off of that, there was a question that Shelley gave me that's, what about in the moment when a family member aggravates or hurts? We can control our actions. We can control our words, but how do we actually feel this overwhelming spiritual love for the person in that moment?
You know, again, going back to that, this is a different one, but going back to that, the crystal, you know, trying to find that center, the clarity, which is a word that you use for crystals, diamonds, and, you know, the clarity. You want us to, the more clarity you have and not getting distracted by, like, my husband and I had a little bit of an argument today, and I'm frustrated and he's frustrated, you know, but he's sick. Like he woke up not feeling well and spent the day like laying around. And later when we calmed down and, you know, I went back, okay, I'm like, you know, we have to be conscious of when we're not feeling well, to be careful in what words we use, because it's so easy to allow not feeling well to infiltrate how you behave and how you're acting and how you're responding. And when it's the other person, like if say you've got a child that's acting up, or a neighbor or whatever. It's the other person, because clearly it's not you. It's the other person, they're acting up, and you're, it's easy to just fall into their mood, into their anxiety and anger and frustration. And then, you're both at it. But what we're striving for is to keep our cool, keep our clarity, keep our patience, so that our love can stay clear and unbiased. And it's not easy to do. It's not for me anyway. I can get very easily sidetracked. I'm getting a little bit better. So it's a maturity, it's a growth, it's a active growth, learning. I mean, you want to strive for it. Some people seem to have it just naturally. I do envy them. But at the same time, I am very appreciative of my journey and the growth that I've had to do, and the learnings and the fallings down. Yeah. So getting back to Shelley's question, it's just, we have to kind of like take that deep breath, count to 10, all those little tools that we talk about. And maybe even remind yourself, I love this person. I truly love this person. I deeply love this person. I'm not going to let what they say throw me off. Because they don't throw you off. You allow yourself to get thrown off.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Another question was, everything here reflects something in the divine realm or spiritual truth. What do different kinds of love, like passion, compassion, maternal love, etc., represent?
The same. Compassion would be compassion. If there's like a bigger compassion, do we still call it compassion, even though it's like more compassion? I don't know. If they do, then, I mean, that's not language that I understand. Although in all my interactions with spirit, very rarely do they use words. It's more of a knowing and a loving and a experiencing. Sometimes they have to give me a word or something because of the situation. But for me, and I don't know, I can't speak for anybody else. That's why I have to speak for myself. And that's why I'm always talking about my experience, because I don't know anybody else's. But that's how I get it. It's not words. So whatever we translate compassion to be, it's just at a different degree. I think I talked about this maybe a month ago or so, but when we're doing the work and you're taking on the energy of others, and to make it clear, to resolve an issue.
Yes.
One person took on the energy of somebody in a married couple, and later the person said to me, "Oh, the person of the couple," they said, "Oh, she must have really felt like how did she say it? How deep their love was." And I said, "Yeah." I said, "But she said that the love that she felt in this other relationship when she was taking on somebody else who's in spirit world, that it was like 10,000 times stronger." Which doesn't mean like, oh, their love is better than the other one's love. It's not that. It's that in spirit world, in spirit existence, experience, I think we feel things, we experience things in a much deeper way. I think that, you know, how we're kind of restricted by the Roy G. Biv, the 7 colors on the rainbow,
Mm-hmm.
though we know that the color spectrum continues in either direction. I mean, scientifically we know that, but we only see this segment. It's like that. Like in when we drop our bones, we don't have this material physical barrier that we can see all those colors. And so same for love. You can, you know, we kind of have a range of love that we experience. And when we're not here, I think we can feel it even stronger, even broader, deeper.
That
Yeah,
makes sense.
I'll let you know when I get there. I'll email, I'll text you.
Okay, that sounds like a good plan.
If you get there first, text me.
All right, I'll come now. I won't have to text you. You, I can just come talk to.
Well, true. Okay.
You will have to text me. Okay. One of the things that I keep thinking of is you know, the aura, you know, the auras, like we've got several. How does the colors that you're projecting out, is that related at all to your aura?
Yeah, it's the color of your love.
Okay.
Yeah, I never thought of that before.
Yeah.
Cool to bring that up. Good,
Yeah.
good catch.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
you said
the predominant, you know, it's the predominant range. And remember, I think pink is like a very high one.
Yeah. Well,
and remember what I said about, like, with my granddaughter, like that pink, that vibrant, excited, powerful love.
Yeah.
You know, that's like there's no care. It just is. Yeah.
That's what made me think of it, because my niece always saw auras, and you know, my sister didn't know, because anyway, but she always said, "Mommy, how come Aunt Wendy's always pink?"
Oh.
You know, and so I was like, so then I thought, and you said pink, and I was like, I wonder. So see, it's all in alignment.
Right? See,
Yeah.
see, that's why I love you, because you're pink.
Aw. And I know you mean it.
What?
All right. I said, and I know you mean it.
I do.
So I have a question for you then. Another one. Is there a way to change the color? Like, let's say that I was feeling all pink about somebody, but I didn't really want them to know. So what if I wanted them to see yellow or feel yellow? I mean, is there a way that you can control that, or is it just something that comes from your heart and it is what it is?
It is what it is. And why would you want to make somebody think that you only love them yellow?
Well, you know,
Yellowy.
well, okay, you know what? That's going to go back to fear of unrequited love, unreciprocated love. Yeah, unrequited. I guess that's the right word. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe I don't want them to know it's pink.
Yeah.
I don't know. I haven't been in that situation for a long time. It was just a question that came to my mind.
Yeah. No, yeah. I mean, you maybe don't want to, like,
I don't want to tip my hat and let them know.
yeah, but why? See, we're because
That's
here's the
fair.
thing: if they are actually worthy of that pink love, they're going to respond in a
Mhm.
good way. And if
Right.
they don't, then they're not worthy of it.
Right.
And I don't want to say not worthy, not ready is probably a better word, because nobody is not worthy of love, right?
Thank you for that clarification.
And so, yeah, so maybe they're not ready, and they're not in a place, in a position that they can accept it, because they have their own growth and work to do.
Right.
And, you know, even before I got into all this, I somehow knew, like, okay, so my first child's father never had anything to do with him. And I loved that man. And I know he loved me in his way, but when it came down to it, it had nothing to do with the child that was unplanned. And I, of course, was hurt and everything, but that's not the point here. The point was that I recognized that regardless of what happens in this world, that I would all that I love that person. I'm not in love with them, but I love that person. That love exists and will always exist. And throughout eternity, we share a child. Doesn't mean in eternity I'm going to go like, move in next door, but energetically I am connected to that person always. And so why would I want to like deny that love? Again, it's not that I'm going to act on it romantically, but it exists. It's true, it's real. It's just the way it is. So if he was to knock at the door, would I be like, oh, I love you? I wouldn't be ashamed to say it. And if it was appropriate, I would say it. It depends if he's in a place where he can hear it and not be like,
Yeah.
Like I'm so bad, I'm so whatever. If he could hear it in a way of how I mean it, I would say it. Go ahead.
That's a weird thing that we've been brought up with, is to not feel free to express love.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
Because people surely express other not so positive feelings without anything holding them back. But love, we feel like we need to hold it closer.
Mm-hmm.
And if it was the other way around, wow, how beautiful would it be?
So are we afraid to
I think it all just comes down to what you said, afraid. There's rejection or looking foolish, or
and then there was a period of time where romantic love was like in a marriage wasn't contracted for romantic love.
Right.
It was contracted for raising children and having somebody to supply what you needed. The man needed a woman to cook and clean and have babies, and the woman needed the man to provide a home and money for clothes or do the farming work and provide food, or however it was. It wasn't so, not that any of those relationships didn't contain love and become love, but there were often, sometimes it was, especially in the higher classes, right? When they got, heaven forbid, if you're a girl born into a royal family, you were just a bargaining chip. You had no clue no say in who you were going to marry. So in that kind of a situation, like, does love even like, hopefully you can grow to love the person, if it's a halfway decent person. But, now we marry for love, theoretically, hopefully. So, that could be part of it too. Like, it just wasn't, you didn't marry somebody for love. You married somebody because there was like, he was the only single guy in your little village, and you had to marry somebody. Everybody else was, like my Oma, she, after World War II, there weren't any men. She already had my mother, but my mother's father he was a soldier, and he took off, and so, and didn't come back to marry her like he had said. But after there weren't any men. And actually, my grandmother had 7 brothers and 1 sister, and that sister worked in a factory or something, and met this woman, and they became friends. And it turns out that the reason that woman befriended my aunt, or my great aunt, was because she heard that she had brothers. And she got invited, my aunt invited her home, and she did marry one of my uncles. And then after that, they weren't friends anymore, even though now they were in-laws, because she was just interested. There weren't a lot of men left, and somehow all 7 of my uncles all made it home. 5 of them were prisoners of war, but still, they all made it home.
Wow.
So, there was a plethora of men in that house, which, a lot of places, a lot of families lost all their sons.
Wow.
There weren't a lot of men.
That's crazy. All right. I'm going to circle back to a question I should have asked earlier, but how do you describe love, not love, at its true essence, true spiritual love?
No ifs. No buts. Does that make sense?
Yes.
It simply is.
I
No
wrote that
down. Huh?
I wrote that down in all caps.
Yeah, no qualifiers.
Right. That's simple and yet very profound.
That's what came. Poof. I'm like, oh, that was easy. It was an easy answer, because
so-
sometimes I have to struggle a little bit, like, to translate. But that's so fun. Perfect. Okay.
How do you cultivate true spiritual love for others?
Those that we know, or those that, like, the random people walk down the street, or the grocery guy, or
I think for me, all of the above.
we have this us versus them mentality.
Mm-hmm.
Black versus white, immigrant versus earlier immigrant, money, no money, male, female, this country, that nation, healthy, not healthy, wheelchair, no wheelchair, marbles intact, marbles missing. We have all these ways of not loving others, including, and then heaven forbid, somebody that, like, an outsider, right? Not in your family, not in your neighborhood, not your skin color, not from your country, and heaven forbid they're not from your planet. We always make them other. But when we remember that every single one of us, no matter what we look like, where we're born, what planet we're from, what galaxy we're from, what universe we're from, we are all brothers and sisters in Creator. There's no getting around that. And especially, like, people, they go, oh, about that. And I'm like, where do you think those people came from? They're created the same as you. It's kind of mind-boggling, really. But we're really good at seeing the differences. But if we could live in the remembering of our source, that we all come from the same place, that we're all going home to the same place, that we're all here for all different kinds of reasons, but essentially for growth. And your journey looks different than my journey, that looks different than that person's journey and that person's journey. Our journeys have different nuances, but they're all ultimately and at their core the same. And again, we come from the same place. If you can hold that, then all the other stuff doesn't matter.
Okay.
And heaven forbid we weren't different. Do I want everybody to look like this? No. Have my experience? No. Or yours or anybody's. What would be terrible if we were all the same?
So embracing the differences in others.
Yes.
I like that.
And being understanding and compassionate. Just because somebody is a drunk or somebody is unable to pay their bills or whatever, that doesn't mean you have to go and pay their bills, or it doesn't mean you have to, just instead of being like, let's have compassion. That's their journey. That's their role. That's what they took on to come here. And it is frustrating, right? When certain things you see that people do and you're like, oh my gosh. But when we back up and remember that that's the tests that they organize for themselves, you can back off.
Yeah.
I was
going to say sometimes
give them some, what?
Go ahead. Finish. I was just going to say, that's what I was thinking, is that sometimes saving them is actually doing more harm, because you're impeding, you're interrupting their soul's process, the things that they came for. Not saying that you shouldn't help people, but just you have to be mindful of that we don't know what other people need to go through to expand their soul.
Yeah.
So I think it's just, you don't always have to be the hero, but you can be the hero by being loving and kind and compassionate.
Yeah.
So what is, go ahead.
I was just thinking, just imagine how the world would be if we all just had an honoring for that.
Right.
And weren't like, well, it's okay if we put the dump on those people in that area, because those people, they don't count as much as, people like me.
Right.
It's okay to tear down the top of that mountain or build dams or whatever, because those people, they're
casual.
They're inconsequential.
Yeah.
They don't even have cars. So,
yeah.
What does that got to do with anything?
Nothing. So what's the one main thing that would be our takeaway from this subject tonight?
No ifs.
Okay. I like it.
And it seems, they're using me as an example as they're sharing with me. But I think it's applicable to not just me, but to recognize and allow for the fact that this is sometimes absolutely exhausting world, and trying to grow and learn and be and love. And sometimes we have to just take a little break. Go park it on the couch, go for a walk, whatever, extract yourself from whatever situation, and just allow yourself to marinate for a while. So give yourself grace for what you're doing, for what you've accomplished so far, and that maybe you just are not in a place right now that you need to talk to anybody. Just allow yourself to pull back and come back refreshed and go at it again.
Naps are good.
Yeah. And maybe it's a nap, maybe it's a 5-minute thing, maybe it's an hour thing, maybe it's a week long, maybe it's a month long. Regardless, if you need to pull back, give yourself permission and the grace and honor to pull back. love yourself.
Beautiful.
Take care of yourself. Yeah, I'm remembering that one. Okay, let's wind down on that. You have any more questions?
I don't have any more.
All right. All right, we will be sharing in some source soup that they're sending to us. So get yourself comfortable. Allow it to flow to you. Maybe you'll get some messages, maybe not. Maybe you'll feel it, maybe not. However it is, just allow. Stay in it as long as you like. And we'll see you next week. Oh, and if you're on YouTube, hit the subscribe and the bell and the comments and likes and wave and whatever else. Say hi. Any of you on here can do this, but specifically you with an S. This one was reaching out for you, so pull it into your heart. Love is the answer.